So yesterday we discussed why Mitch Johnson was the wrong choice for the next Spurs head coach. How about today? Let's discuss why he is the right one.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs and in the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back and hope you're having a great day as always. And thank you guys for being the everydayers. Come here and listening to Locked On Spurs, your number one spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. Follow us on X at Locked On Spurs, as well as subscribing over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page, Ken's 5 Plus app, iTunes, Spotify, you know where to go. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You want to go to FanDuel right now because new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So what are we talking about today? Well, this is the conclusion of a two-part series. And yesterday's, we kicked it off with why Mitch is the wrong pick for the next head coach. Today, we're going to counter that and say why he was the right pick. Now, if y'all want to go back, this is the Monday show. That's where we discuss the cons of this. So ideas such as inexperience, the wealth of experienced head coaches that were available, even the rebuild was brought up. But today, we're going to see if we can see why perhaps he was the right one. We're going to dive into that and so much more. Let's go to bring in our guest to take on the position of why Mitch is the good pick. Although I had Raul Dominguez as my number one pick as the next coach for the San Antonio Spurs. Again, he is Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Follow my next at Dominguez Cinco. You want to do that right now. And yeah, Raul, first of all, welcome back. Thank you as always. And
thanks for having me.
No, not a problem. And you know, yesterday was a pretty momentous day. Let's get into that before we get into the discussion here. Pop's first appearance since the stroke. And I know the Spurs described it as a mild stroke. Based on what we saw, it looked like it got him pretty bad. From what I can see in the video, he had a lot of mental pauses that were kind of extended. His eyes looked pretty wide. And it looks like he could not move his left side as much as he could the right side. So based on that, Raul, it was clear just physically he obviously could not handle a full season next season.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it was going to be tough for him to come back, even if it had been a really, really mild stroke, just because, with any stroke, there's going to be some sort of physical environments. And then also, as you're rehabbing, obviously you want to do everything you can to limit the stress and the wear and tear on your body. And so, everyone knows, Pop's very emotional when he coaches, very locked in, and then the travel and, there's times where you're going to play back to back, or maybe 4 games and 5 nights or something like that. It was going to be difficult. I just didn't see him coming back. And then, when he had the medical episode where he reportedly fainted, at a restaurant, I just kind of sealed it from him. I just didn't think there was any way he could come back. And, for his own health, obviously, basketball is basketball, but I think myself and everyone just wants Pop, Coach Pop to be okay physically.
Yeah, exactly. And he was flanked by Manu and Tim Duncan. Looks like they were there just to make sure he was steady. But yeah, the effects of the stroke were obvious. He had a little difficult time turning around to show off his El Jefe t-shirt. To show the back, he had to lean on Manu a bit, and you can see even the walk. The walk was a little stuttered. Although kudos to him, it looks like Timmy was holding a cane for him, but didn't use it at all. He came in walking under his own power. But yeah, it was clear.
Great to see him.
Yeah,
it was great to see him. But it was also tough to see him. I mean, because we haven't, nobody's seen him. Nobody, media-wise or, outside the Spurs organization and your friends and family have seen him since stroke happened November 2nd. I think it was maybe late October, I guess, when most people saw him. So we hadn't seen him. So seeing, him when he's his old lively self to now was a bit tough. Had someone tell me that Pop actually looks a lot better than he did, previously. So that kind of, I was kind of like, that's heartening, but also heartbreaking. You think about it, it's like, man, he was in, in
bad shape. Yeah.
Bad shape. So, but he's still sharp. He's still funny. But like I said, you could just see the the effects of the stroke. And like I said, it was great to see him, but also it was tough to see him.
Yeah, it definitely was. And but it was very clear, even the inroads that he made, as Raul brought up, even if he still had the entire offseason to get ready for the next season, 25-26 season, it probably would not still be enough. And plus, Pop even admitted it himself, saying that at the rate he's going, it probably ain't going to work out, and that it was time. It was, it was a little heartbreaking too, but also too, what for me, I took it as a lot of bravery on his part to come out in public, like that. He could have simply just given to Tim or Manu or whoever written a statement about passing the torch, but he showed up there in person. So I thought that was very brave of him to do that. Also, too, he kind of had to do it too, Raul, because he was going to have to be in the public spotlight in his new position as team president. It was going to happen someday.
Yeah, I think he wanted to publicly show his support for Coach Pop. I mean, sorry for Coach Mitch.
Yeah,
and I think he also just kind of wanted to be there to show his support and his love for Coach Mitch. And I think it was also good for the fans and everyone to see Pop, and so they could understand his decision better. I'm sure some people were thinking like, oh, I'm sure people weren't aware to the extent of where he was physically. And I think seeing him today, answered a lot of questions, and also, allows people to kind of say prayers for him and thoughts for, give good thoughts to him as he continues on this journey to get back to where he was before.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, as Raul mentioned right now, Pop still had the quick whipped, picked on Timmy and Manu, saying this was their revenge to get at him via his rehab doctors to make him do stuff that makes him uncomfortable. So he definitely has some fun. I mean, plus too, the El Jefe t-shirt, I think that was hilarious. For those that don't speak Spanish, that just means the boss in English, because now he's going to his new position full-time as team president. But overall, yeah, I mean, he did officially pass the baton to Mitch Johnson. Let's get into it now, Raul. Yesterday's show, we talked about why the Spurs did the wrong thing by bringing on Mitch Johnson as the next head coach, the successor to Popovich. Let's talk about today why it was the right decision. And I'll kick things off. Just basic continuity. The Spurs always believe in continuing the lessons, the foundation that Popovich, Buford, those guys that when they came in, they set up, and then proof is in the pudding with the 5 titles, decades, nearly 2 decades of excellence and postseason. Continuing that. Sure, they're in a rebuild right now. It's been lean seasons, but the track is going up. With Mitch Johnson, it's not just he just arrived on the scene yesterday and it's like, okay, I guess I'm in it. Or no, he's been with the Spurs family for about 10 years. And sure, he lacks experience as an official NBA head coach, but Austin Spurs assistant coach, Austin Spurs champion assistant coach, obviously last season getting a very good large sample size of coaching experience for himself. And he's been sitting next to Pop for quite some time now. And Pop even mentioned it too at the press conference, saying that Mitch has been at his side, either on that first bench or behind the bench. He's been watching and studying and getting familiar with Popovich and the Spurs way. So keeping that system, that continuity with somebody who's been there is doing that versus somebody from the outside who might just change things up and want to go a different route. I think that was probably a big reason why they went with Mitch. Your thoughts, Raul?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Pop obviously had the right to step down when he wanted to, and it was up to him to make that announcement. Then I think it was also his right, and he's earned, being able to have some sort of say in the successor. And it was evident Pop wanted Mitch to take over. So, to me, that says a lot. I mean, I've been saying since the first week that Mitch took over as an interim coach that I've always been impressed with him. We've always been impressed with him, but even after that first week when he took over Pop, I said, that Mitch was going to be a a head coach in the NBA very soon if it wasn't with the Spurs.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. I still believe that even before he was named. But I personally think it's a great decision. I think he's going to do well. And, just the love that he got from Pop and from the organization, from the front office, from the players, Wemby really loves and respects Mitch. So I understand fans wanted a big name, but even the big names started off somewhere. They weren't big names, when they started. So very few of them.
No. And it's eerily, I mean, not quite, but it's kind of similar to Pop's start in San Antonio. Shock everybody. Yeah. Fans were not fans of Popovich at all when he arrived on the scene in San Antonio. You don't believe me? You ask Raul, who was there. There were chants of fire Pop. Fans didn't like the move of him replacing Bob Hill. It took not one, not two, multiple seasons for fans to finally come around. And you kind of see that now with Mitch. Fans are saying, no, get him out of here. What are you doing? Spurs, this is not the guy. What are you doing? There's the Jenkins out there. Try to get Becky back here. What are you doing? Mike Malone, you won a title recently. Get him here. But as Raul mentioned, Pop got his start in a cascade of boos and fan pushback. Mitch is getting his start with the majority of fan boos and pushback. Now, there are some that are actually thumbs up. But nevertheless, it's so similar. And, another reason why, Raul, I think this was a good decision for the Spurs to move forward with Mitch Johnson. You hit on the head right there. It's Wemby. Remember, Mitch is Wemby's personal coach prior to him becoming the new head coach. And I think Wemby likes what he saw out of him. And you make Wemby happy, that's a nice, happy franchise player right there. So when times comes to renegotiating that contract, maybe he doesn't get any ideas of exiting out. So I think it just shows a sign that Wemby, if Wemby had a say in this, that, hey, we're going to keep with the guy that you approve. And, he has the approval of the players, thumbs up. So you got player approval, Wemby approval, the continuity, staying within the family. And also, too, he's young, Raul. He's 38 years old. He's a baby. He's a baby compared to you and me, Raul. And he's going to fit in with this very young squad. And for me, that gives Mitch ample opportunity, more than enough. If he does stick around and nothing bad happens down the road, where they have to replace him. But he could be with this team for the long term. Your thoughts, Raul?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when when Boston and Oklahoma City had openings recently, same thing. People were saying, hey, bring in a big name. You got these teams that are, with Boston, they were on the verge of, potentially winning a title at that time. After they had released Ime.
Yeah.
They hadn't won the title yet, but they were, obviously on the doorstep. So people wanted, a name coach, and they hired, promoted from within. They got Joe Mazzulla, who I believe was not even the lead assistant on Ime's staff. Same thing with Oklahoma City. They hired from within and got Dagnall, and both of those decisions have been incredible. I mean, they've both done extremely well, and I think there's a lot to say for continuity. I think if they had hired someone like Malone, where he is, loves Pop and sort of is from that coaching tree. Excuse me. He has different ideas. Some things would have changed. You brought in maybe a former assistant. They're from the coaching tree, but they kind of have their own ways or whatever as well. I think Mitch can sort of bring his own way, but still keep it in more of the Spurs culture. Like I said, there's a lot to say for continuity. He's going to have Pop there if he has any questions.
Yep.
But he's earned this. He's been on the bench. Would they have liked to seen Mitch go somewhere else and coach for a few years and have success there, and then come back here? I mean, like Will Hardy. He went to Utah's had success. Coach Bud went to Atlanta and then to Milwaukee and Phoenix, had success. So does somebody have to go somewhere else and prove themselves and be successful before Spurs fan welcome them back, or can they just allow Mitch to be here and be successful and go, okay, well, I was wrong. Yeah. He is a good coach.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're not done talking about this topic. We're going to be discussing why Mitch Johnson was the right choice for the Spurs. Coming up next, right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Make sure to follow him on X at Dominguez5. You want to do that right now. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You got to try out the FanDuel app right now. Download it, get it on your favorite device. Easy to use, user-friendly. You can pick it up in no time and just have fun watching the NBA playoffs. Don't miss out. Head out to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
I am Megatron. Do not fail me and subscribe to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez. He is with the AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez5. And we are discussing part 2 of a 2-part series about Mitch Johnson. Part 1 was on Monday, so go back and listen to that. That's regarding why Mitch was the wrong pick for the Spurs. But today we're talking why he is the right pick. So we're going to get both sides here. We're going to go equal time for both arguments. So in the first segment, Raul, we talked about continuity. We talked about Wemby and him being Mitch being Wemby's personal coach until he got the head coaching spot. Wouldn't be surprised if he continues doing that, even though he's a head coach. When you talked about, why there was some trepidation as to bringing in a new coach like Mike Malone and the fear of losing Mitch to another team. And I'm glad you brought that up because there's been a brain drain, a coaching brain drain in the Spurs system for quite some time. Ime, Becky, Will, Bud, Ettore Messina, the list goes on and on and on. Imagine they didn't have a Mitch on the roster or on the coaching roster, I should say. And then this happened to Popovich, the medical situation. Then they're scrambling. Like, okay, well, who's going to come in? Brett Brown? I mean, Brett Brown probably would step to the plate, but, again, Mitch is young and you like that. But here's something else I want to bring up to you, why it was the right decision too. Is you saw how Mitch was last season as interim head coach. Whether the Spurs won big, lost close, lost bad, or lost just by a bucket, he was even keel. You never see him blew up. You never saw him get angry. He was just matter of fact, this is what we got to do. And for a young coach to have that temperament, I think that's good. So I like that at least in those months that we got him as interim head coach, he showed that he's never going to get too high. He's never going to get too low. I think that's something this young Spurs team needs. Somebody who understands it's still developing, it's still growing. And hopefully next season they take a big step. But I like his temperament. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they talked about how he was, very calm, especially, considering everything that happened with the Spurs. I mean, obviously the struggle with Pop, was just traumatic, and especially to a young team, Pop's, like a father or grandfather figure to these players,
right?
That could have shaken them to the core, but Mitch was able to kind of, steady the ship, and then you lose Wemby, and then you lose Fox, and Mitch learned well from Pop, just okay, this happened to us, this doesn't stop us from preparing for games, working for games, playing hard. Like, we need to continue to do that. But one thing you mentioned as far as him sort of stayed even keel, there was times where I saw him kind of blow up where he'd get after these players. So he's got that in him. So he's not like I think people think, oh, he's too laid back. No, he's got some fire in him. He definitely has some fire in him. I think now that he's head coach, I think you're going to see more of that. But the other thing is, like, he's going to be head coach, and obviously he's going to talk to Pop and sort of get his input. But this is his team now. I think last year he was coaching, with Pop in mind. This was Pop's team. He was just sort of, taking care of the team for him. But now he's going to be head coach. I think you're going to see more of an imprint on rotations, different things. And I think you're going to see more of Mitch's personality come out. You're going to see more of his strategy come out. So I'm looking forward to that because I think I personally think he did a great job under the circumstances.
Right.
I think they finished 11-19, I believe, after Wemby went down, which is a great record when you lose your top player, and Fox was out for about half those games as well. So, and you saw how hard this team played for them down the stretch when they had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
So I think that tells you a lot about how much this team listens to Coach Mitch, and how much they listen to Coach Mitch and how much they care for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I get the fan base that are not happy about the pick and as Mitch's Pop's successor because of the coaching talent that was out there. He picked, seriously, it is out there. But again, there's something to be said about keeping it in the family. And sure, technically, yes, Coach Bud is in the family and Jenkins and whatnot, but Mitch is there. Mitch is understood this roster for a good chunk of the season. I think a lot of fans do forget that Mitch pretty much coached the entire 24-25 season because Pop went out, in November, right?
Yeah, November 2nd when he had his stroke. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that
was about so yeah, I was like the first quarter of the season or the first month of the season, rather.
Yeah. It was quick. So he got himself quite on the job training for the rest of the season. And again, I just go back to that temperament. That's one thing that really stands out for me for Mitch is he is so even keeled. Sure, now that he's head coach, maybe he may blow up a couple of times post game or, with us, but I just like that temperament because this is the new school. We're in the new school, and here is Mitch. He's the new school coach. And look at the rest of the NBA. A lot of head coaches are getting their start young. Will Hardy, remember that? He was the youngest coach for a while. Now you got Mitch. Now you got Dagnall. The list goes on and on. Missoula. That's just the trend now. There's a lot of younger coaches getting their break at a young age, Raul.
Yeah. It definitely seems like teams are starting to do that now where they're starting to, hire either from within or hire young. Memphis just named, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Coach Salo, I believe is,
good luck, bro. I had a hard time too.
So, but they just hired him, to replace Jenkins, and it seems like teams are starting to go that way more. I know Spurs fans wanted big names, but not to disparage any of those great coaches, but Coach Bud struggled in Milwaukee. He struggled in Phoenix. Coach Malone was just let go of in Denver. Right as they're about to enter the playoffs. So these are great coaches, but there's also, there's something that led to their firing, so It's not like, and who maybe the firings were justified or not justified, but there's some flaws with them as well. So, and look at the fan base in Phoenix, that they didn't want Coach Bud anymore.
Right.
So, and again, I'm not saying that to disparage him, but I'm saying that I think everyone has this rosy picture of it. Oh, bring back this coach or that coach, but there's no guarantees that those coaches were going to do phenomenal jobs. Lead the Spurs to an NBA title. Within a year or two. I think Coach Mitch is more of a known factor to the front office and to the players, and that is the biggest thing. You need continuity, and especially from and for the players.
And here's another reason why it's a good move for the Spurs promoting Mitch to the new head coach. He does have a safety net just in case. Now, it is his team. The training wheels are off. I'm pretty sure Pop is going to be hands off. Remember last season, Mitch was very open. He said that, yes, Pop was still helping him out a lot on phone calls, getting mad at him, whatnot. But I predict that Pop will likely be hands off, unless it's something egregious, or, Mitch just not getting it. But I doubt that. But he does have that safety net. He does have Pop there to lean on, and a guy that he shouted out, Uncle Brett Brown. Now, not Uncle by blood, but Uncle just in sentiment. So he'll still have a known coaching commodity on that bench next to him to lean on. And of course, you got Matt Nielsen, and I suspect they'll probably either bring somebody else in or hire or promote somebody to the next chair up. So he'll have that support system there too. So Mitch will be fine in that capacity. And you know what's, I want to say it's ironic, but more like this is what we predicted. Unfortunately, it was the wrong way, in my opinion, the right way that Pop should have exited due to a stroke. But in a way, he's exiting, and the team is in a good spot. Remember, that was kind of the sentiment that Pop will retire when the team is in a good spot. You know, it's unfortunate, but the team is in a good spot right now. And even if he was healthy, if Pop exited like he did, I think the team will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what Pop wanted to do. I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't, retire previous to that. I think Pop saw that the franchise was down. I think he didn't want to leave that for his successor, have the franchise down, and struggling. I think he wanted to hand the torch off, when they were on either if they just won a title or on the verge of winning a title, where they were on the upswing. And Spurs definitely are. I think I think coach has left them in a great position, and great roster right now, led by Wemby, Fox, and Castle. Right. You got Keldon, Devin, and Jeremy, potential free agents. You got the 2 draft picks. And, I just think right now there's a buzz about the Spurs, with the players they have, And, I think players around the league that are free agents, I think they're going to start looking at the Spurs. They're going to see how much love, how much continuity, how much potential this team has. I think you can see free agents wanting to come here more than they ever have before.
Absolutely. Raul, before we switch to what the fans are saying, any final thoughts on why it was the right move for the Spurs to promote Mitch to the new head coach?
I just think that he's worked well with the players. They've seen him as an assistant coach. That they know what he's capable of. They have a lot of love and respect for him, and the fact that they all sort of went all out. I don't know anything personally, but just from what I've heard, the whispers I've heard, that they were really wanting him to be the coach. So the fact that they wanted him to be the coach so badly, to me, that tells me there's no way they're going to let him fail.
Yeah, exactly. Now, everybody, is Mitch going to make now officially rookie NBA head coaching mistakes? Probably. That's probably going to happen. But that happened to Popovich many times. It happened to some of the best coaches out there. It happens even at OKC, the number 1 team, down to the very bottom of the rung, the Wizards or the Hornets, whatever it is. Coaches make mistakes. It happens. So I think just as much as fans are somewhat, not fully, but somewhat patient with some of the players, I think Mitch deserves some of that patience as well. Now, again, if we're in past the All-Star break next year and the Spurs are just down and bad, and I can understand why Spurs fans will point the finger at Mitch for the team not winning. But based on what we saw last season with his coaching, the upswing the Spurs had to close out the season, especially as Raul mentioned, without Wemby and Fox, I think all signs are pointing in the right direction. But hey, those are our thoughts on why Mitch Johnson was the right pick for the Spurs next head coach. Let us know what you think. You can let Raul know by following him on X at Dominguez5. You can let me know by leaving a comment at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page and give us your thoughts on why or why not. How about that? Both sides of the coin here. The Spurs hired Mitch Johnson. Speaking of Locked On Spurs, when we get back, we're going to read some of your comments. Raul, brace yourself. Not a lot of good comments regarding Mitch, but we'll check them out coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Springs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez of AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez5. And I found out that Raul is a new member of the New Avengers now. I found that out, Raul.
Have you seen? I haven't seen the Thunderbolts yet. I hear good and bad stuff about us. I'm a little
Yeah.
I'm hoping the good is actually what it is. So
Yeah. I'm hearing more good than bad. So I'm either way, how you slice it. If you look at like some sort of Venn diagram, it meets in the middle, which means this is good. It's a good movie. So we'll definitely see. Yeah, he's picking up the Avengers mantle for the OG crew. All right, let's go to look at some Locked On Spurs comments here. And yeah, not good. Not good. Again, fans are obviously reacting to Mitch Johnson becoming the new Spurs head coach. And I get it too, Raul. I mean, who had a bingo card, Mitch Johnson, to succeed Popovich? I mean, all the anybody probably did. But let's see what Spurs fans are talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. All right, the first one is, regarding Mitch Johnson. And lo and behold, actually a good comment. So let's see what we have to say. He says, well, first person is from a poet named JT. All right. Says, damn, give Mitch a chance. Bleep, you got to start somewhere, and this shouldn't have been shocking. Y'all know how Spurs are, be for real. And I agree with that. I think you got to give Mitch a chance. And he's also right too, Raul. This was, if you really look at the tea leaves, this is not a shocking move. Your thoughts?
No, it definitely was not. I mean, you look at the sort of what the Spurs have been wanting to do and continue that continuity. I mean, I think people either they forget or weren't around to see what the Spurs were like pre Popovich and pre Buford and pre the whole family owning the Spurs. I mean, there was a lot of changes, a lot of turmoil, a lot of what the heck are we doing? Let's bring in this guy. Bring in a guy at the end of his career. As a name that doesn't really fit in with the system, but hey, he can score. I think people forget, how much the stability that Pop, Buford, and the Holtz have brought to the Spurs. And
right,
the one thing that I was also going to say is when Buford stepped down, Brian Wright was behind the scenes, but not a lot of people knew who Brian was. Brian Wright was. I mean, a lot of people panned him being named successor and saying, they wanted, also kind of a bigger name or a more established name. And, Brian's, taking a lot of hits, a lot of unfair, in my viewpoint, a lot of them unfair, but Brian Wright's done a heck of a job as GM.
Oh, yeah.
And he was kind of in the same boat, and matter of fact, he started the same week Mitch did with the Spurs. So, what he's done, should be, a good sign for what Mitch can do as the head coach. A known commodity to the Spurs organization. They know what Wright was capable of, and they feel like they know what Johnson is capable of.
Yeah, it's, again, just so many eerie parallels here. Remember, it was RC and Pop that came up together. Now you got Mitch and Brian Wright that came up the ranks together. So so eerily similar parallels here. All right, next comment is from Amir7778. All right, they say most casual fans who aren't hardcore Spurs fans don't know who this guy is, and he's referring to Mitch Johnson. Mike Malone is a proven championship head coach and who's available. Why didn't the Spurs interview him? Was it a salary issue? It looks like we got a frustrated fan here who wanted to bring in an established NBA head coach versus a novice, a rookie NBA head coach. Look, I wasn't able to attend the press conference due to a personal issue in the family, Raul, but was that brought up about why the Spurs didn't interview other coaches?
I think the question that the GM Brian Wright was asked about why they felt like, Mitch was the right choice, over other candidates that were out there. And, Brian Wright talked about what we talked about as far as, he knows Mitch, they came into the organization the same week. They've seen him develop. They've seen him work from, the back of the seats, they have the second, sort of the secondary assistants. Then they have the front row assistants, seen him work his way up and, also going to Austin and working through there. And, they see what he's capable of. They know what he's done, and they saw what he did this season. And, I understand why fans are frustrated. You see the big names out there. You see Coach Malone, you see Coach Jenkins, you see Becky Hammond, you see Monty Williams is in town. So many choices. And I understand that they wanted a big name, but again, they weren't big names, when they started. So they built up that resume, and look at some of again like Coach Mazzulla and Coach Dagnall. They were unknown, and they're both the hottest commodities as far as coaches. Any team would love to have either one of those coaches. Yeah. So I think Mitch is going to have a successful career, and I think it's going to be sort of like what the way Brian Wright is rather. I think people later are going to say, he's actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And was it a salary issue? Don't know, but you would kind of predict that, like take Mike Malone, a championship caliber coach, probably would have asked the Spurs for a little bit of a payday. And, could that have been a factor? Maybe. Remember San Antonio is a small market. You got players to pay in a few years, and they're coming up quick. That could have been a factor there too. But as Raul said, I understand the Spurs fans' frustration. They think there would have been a parade downtown if Mike Malone was announced, but there's not going to be a parade for Mitch. But I think in time, he will convince Spurs fans that this was the right decision. And by the way, kudos to him, because he did mention the Spurs fan base, Mitch, that is, when he was talking, he said like, hey, we're trying to make this a better team for y'all and sticking with this. And then he kind of alluded to the pushback that he's getting from the fan base. He said like, well, I appreciate their competitive spirit, something to that effect. So he's aware that he's not well received right now, Raul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wasn't a salary issue, Coach Pop is was one of the best paid head coaches in the NBA, and so I'm sure, I don't know if Pop's going to take a salary cut. I imagine he may. I don't know, but even if he doesn't, I know the Spurs would have more than gladly paid for the coach. They're not doing this because they're on a budget. Like, oh, let's hire Mitch, on the cheap. Like, I'm sure they're going to compensate Mitch Johnson very well, but
I'm pretty sure yes.
It just came down to they felt like Mitch Johnson was the best fit, and I'm sure that they talked about it with Pop and with everyone else and explored the ideas of what about this coach, what about that coach, what about this coach, and I'm sure they had the pros and the cons, and the more the pros were for Mitch and kind of what they felt, where they wanted to go, and where they are at right now.
Yeah, exactly. So there you have it. The new head coach for the San Antonio Spurs, Mitch Johnson. Never thought, it's been a while since we've said that. Well, since the 90s, when Pop did it. So it's been quite a while. But hey, everybody, thank y'all for leaving the comments over the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. We'll continue reading those as the offseason continues. But we definitely got to hear from you. What do y'all think? Again, we're trying to be balanced here at Locked On Spurs. Yesterday's show was about why it was a bad choice. Today's why it's a good choice. I'm bringing that up again, Raul, because I'm getting comments already on Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Like, why y'all bashing him? And yesterday's episode, I'm like, did you listen? It's part one. And part one, we're talking about the bad. Now we're talking about the good. So go ahead, Raul.
No, I was going to say, let's, just kind of see what happens. But I sort of watched Mitch, as an assistant coach, and I've always been impressed with him. And honestly, to be completely honest, I didn't think he was going to be here. I thought he would have been scooped up by now. I also thought Becky would, and she should be an NBA head coach, so I think the Spurs were lucky that I think Mitch was a finalist with the Wizards, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised that they didn't hire him. So I think the Spurs were lucky that he was still available, that he was still on the staff, and that he was in position to help them with this transition period.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would have been bad if the Spurs did lose Mitch whenever Washington was calling, and then they're again stuck in the situation they're in right now. So that blindsided the franchise, Pop getting hit with this stroke. So, hey, things happen for a reason, and Mitch is your new head coach. Nothing to do about it, Spurs fans. It is what it is. You just got to cross your fingers and hope Mitch does a good job, but we believe that he will. All right, again, we got to hear from y'all. You know where to go. Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Leave a comment. Raul, what's going on in your world with the offseason here? And man, we're just getting started, too. The offseason is still done.
Yeah, just, kind of seeing what's, watching these great playoff series. I mean, man, this has been one of the better playoffs I've seen in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe since the Spurs were in it. But it's fun to watch, and then, waiting to see what the results of the NBA draft lottery. I know Spurs fans keep posting, mock drafts that have the Spurs picking 1 and 2. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Again, follow Raul on X at Dominguez5. Let me your thoughts on his take on why Mitch was a good pick. And wish him luck, too. New Avengers, he's going to have a lot of stuff to deal with, too. Just like Mitch, you got to deal with Galactus. You got to deal
the Red Hulk.
You're going to have to deal with Secret Wars and Doom. So, yeah, Raul has a lot on his plate, too. But again, Raul, thank you for stopping by Locked On Spurs and giving your side of why Mitch is a good pick. And everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get a podcast. Make sure to come back tomorrow as we continue Spurs talk as this offseason marches on. And again, leave those comments. And as always, before I let you go, make sure you can find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube. Go check that out. It's great local analysis put on a national scale. And go subscribe to that right now. But for Mr. Raul Dominguez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.